Hi, and welcome back to Becca Babbles podcast. I'm your host, Becca. I'm a certified personal trainer, holistic health coach, and future chiropractor on my way to figuring out this thing we called life. Now, let's get babbling. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Becca Babbles podcast. Today, I have a friend with me today, Landry. Landry, you want to say hi to everyone?
Guys, so excited to be here.
Yeah, so we thought it would be a great talk to just talk about how you manage grad school or any big thing that's going on with your life while handling your health. Because that honestly I feel like is the hardest thing for people to do is accomplish their goals while maintaining their health.
Yeah, definitely still a work in progress, but definitely have made some changes. And I think it's so funny because coming into chiropractic school, I was like, I'm gonna be the healthiest I've ever been. I'm gonna be surrounded by people that are super healthy, and it's gonna be awesome. And then stress hits, and your body doesn't handle it the way that you thought it might. And then it's like so weird because in my friend group of like 12 people, we have like 3 people at least that have been diagnosed with something since being in
Mm.
school. And some of them were showing signs before school and some of them weren't. And so kind of funny how like none of us had any issues. And now it's like, okay, well now we got to figure out how to be healthy with issues and with school and with a busy schedule and stress and all those things, and try to tell the body it's okay. Like to recognize the difference between eustress, which is good stress, and distress, which is bad. So trying to tell the body like it's okay to have stress. It's just you have to tell your brain how to handle it.
Yeah, and I think it's the moderating the stress, acknowledging that working out is still a stress, but
Yeah.
it depends on how much intensity you're going at it. And I think I talk to so many people, and even this is a talk that I have with myself where I'm just like, I don't feel stressed right now, but it's the accumulation of
Hmm.
that stress while you're in school. But yet I'm like, I don't want to just sit on the couch all day because that doesn't feel recuperative. It just makes me feel more bleh. But
Exactly.
so I'm curious, what is the biggest struggle you found in grad school and how do you handle them?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the time management balance thing is the first thing that everyone runs into. Like, try one for us was online. I think they've taken that away for now. So we were online and we were living in Arkansas and doing school online. And so then try two came, and some people had already been here and they had made friends. And so we were like, oh man, we got to like jump into that. And it's kind of, it's kind of awkward. You're like, it's first day of school again. And so the social aspect of it, because I think we all know it's so important to be in community. And we were worried that that wasn't going to happen, that we were going to have to just like hunker down, just the two of us, and make it work. And it was funny because someone like the first day of the try two came up and was like, "Are y'all the Gannons?" And we were like, "Yes." And they were like, "Oh, I've seen your name like in the chat. Like this is my first day too." And then we were like automatically best friends
Yeah.
because we were both just nervous about it. So social things and getting involved in community, it's been like going to be the number one thing to handle time management. You have to have a social life in addition to school and whatever else you have on your plate. We were also working for the first year and a half of school too.
Mm.
So that was a lot. I don't recommend that. But thankfully we were able to work remote. But yeah, time management is huge. And when you've got a schedule figured out, I mean, I'm a very like list oriented person. I write everything down. If it's not on my calendar, it's not getting done. I'm not going to remember it. And so I just know that about myself. And so I am scheduling also in like good things and like free time. Like you have to schedule that in too, because otherwise you'll get so busy that it'll just never come around and you won't prioritize it. And so for me, like we just kind of made sure that we had a Sabbath, quote unquote, day, just like a day of rest. Um, and that definitely helped manage the stress a little bit too, because even if you're going, 90 miles an hour Monday through Friday, if you can take Saturday off or you can take Sunday off or whatever, whatever that works, maybe it's just an afternoon. If you can set aside time to like, it's not necessarily to rest and binge watch and like sit on the couch all day and feel even more blah, but it's more about like recognize the work that you did this past week and like be happy that you got it done. Like just enjoy the work that you've done and then like look forward to the next week with gratitude and with like a good perspective. So for me, it was more of like a perspective day, I guess you could say, instead of just like a Netflix and, binge all day long. So time management and getting community was like the number one thing. I feel like that helps manage stress, helps manage health and everything. And you can make that a healthy thing too, where it's like, let's go play pickleball. Let's go do whatever this activity is. Let's go to the park. Like, you can make it active as well. And so for me, I think social is like the number one thing you got to get into.
For sure. And I even know for me, like, there's a difference between just waking up in the morning and immediately watching Netflix and watching it all
Mm-hmm.
day compared to waking up in the morning, having a nutritious breakfast, and then like journaling for me is like a really big thing and like
Yeah.
having that introspective time and then going in and like maybe I do have a day where it's like I watch my like favorite Netflix show, but like I started my day with an intention and I
Mm-hmm.
typically will then like end my day with either like a walk or intention. So it is okay to have those, or at least I find for me to have those days where like you do absolutely nothing because like in grad school it's like
Yeah.
your mind is constantly going, and there was like a perspective shift for me because I came from like I was working at a barn and like I was constantly doing sports and stuff like that in high school. So like I'm physically like demanding on my body, but then now you're in this like state of like, no, I'm sitting more, which like has its own issues within itself, but like it's more mentally demanding.
Yeah. No, that's a really good point. And I like how you said the word intention because, you know, it's the lack of intention, I think, that gets us into problems like doom scrolling on TikTok for hours. I'm guilty of that. Or, Instagram or whatever your vice is, or watching a Netflix show and not even realizing, okay, I watched an entire season and I was not planning on doing that. And so I think intention is good too, of like, it is totally okay to have those days. So it's like, what do you want to get out of it? Like, is there a certain time frame that you want to do that? Is that like a reward for something that you did earlier in the week? Like I've studied for part one boards, and when board is over, I am doing absolutely nothing, and that's my reward. That's fine, So I think having an intention and just having a little bit of like, kind of like that time management, like I'm gonna binge it for 3 hours. Like I don't need this morning. I can just do whatever I want with that 3 hours. And so I think that's important too, because it's the mindlessness that I think we like. Like I said, doom scrolling, an example, we stop and then we're like, oh my gosh, where did those 3 hours go? And that's when you like feel even more blah and even more regret. And you're like, why did I do that? Like I actually had things I needed to get done today. And I didn't like prepare how much time I could waste?
Yeah, for sure. And I've been there so many times where I've just been like scrolling and scrolling and then I'm like, "Oh man, I should have like done my schoolwork." But then you're like you're trying to focus on your schoolwork, but then you're so in your head about
Mm-hmm.
getting upset with yourself because you didn't do what you set out to do. Where I like how you say using it as a reward, where it's like it feels like you get the best of both worlds. You're still getting the what you wanted to do in that moment. I've heard someone, I forget exactly who said it, but they call it like the 2 minute rule, where it's like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to set out and do a task for at least 2 minutes. And then you do the task for at least 2 minutes. And then if you're like, I don't want to do this task anymore, fine, go and do whatever
Yeah.
you wanted to do instead. But typically, what I find what happens is like, I focus on the task that I set out to do. And then I can say, like, within 30 minutes, like, if you want to do like the Pomodoro method where you do
Mm-hmm.
like 30 minutes on,
Set the little
5 minutes.
timers. Yeah.
Exactly. Where it's like, okay, that's where I get to like have that reward and keep with that. I find I feel so much better when I get away from that. Like, I find post midterms for me is the hardest time to continue to stick with that. But when I
Mm-hmm.
do, it just, I end up getting all of my stuff done. I end up feeling better and actually being able to relax in the evenings.
Exactly. And like there's so many times that we like catastrophize or like maximize how big the thing on the list actually is. So it's like, oh, I gotta clean the whole house. And it's like, it's really just the kitchen that's bothering you. And like it's really gonna take like 10 minutes. But like you're like, oh, it's gonna be this huge project and like it's not, I can't even do it today. It's just too far gone and I don't have time for it. And it's like kind of like you were saying, that 2 minute method, or like I'm gonna set aside 10 minutes to clean the kitchen. And then you just like rapid pick up everything that's like accumulated on the kitchen island, and then you clean the sink, you clean the dishes, you put it away, and you're like, it actually wasn't that bad. Like it looked worse than it was because I've been putting it off, and the more you put it off, the more it seems like a bigger project. But there's been things like that too, like with school, where I'm like, oh my gosh, this assignment is gonna be awful, and like I haven't even looked at it, but I'm like, oh, it's gonna be the worst thing ever. And then when I actually, I'm like, okay, let me look at it, I'm like, it's actually not that bad. And
Yeah,
like once you get started, you start just like typing away, and then you finish it, and you're like, okay, why did I make that such a big deal in my head? And so a
for
lot of
sure.
it too is like, what if I can start it for 2 minutes? Maybe you do the 2 minutes and you're like, this isn't that bad. Let me just go ahead and finish it.
Mhm.
And so maybe that 2-minute method is just a good little motivator to start. And maybe you'll be halfway in. You're like, let's just finish it while I'm here.
For sure. Why do you think we catastrophize things more than they should be?
Oh, that's good. I think, I don't know. I mean, I think sometimes we don't have the capacity to manage something. And so we just like are like, I'll just put it for later. So like this is kind of a side note, but kind of goes with it. But like a friend of mine like will tell me how she's feeling and like her battery percentage. And so she'll be like, okay, I'm at like 50% battery right now. And so you don't feel bad not doing a task if the task is going to cost like 80% of your battery. And so you're like, I don't have the capacity for it, so I'll just do it tomorrow when I'll wake up tomorrow with 100, so it'll be fine. And so you just like reason with yourself of like, it'll be fine tomorrow. Like today I'm burnt, but like tomorrow I'll wake up with all this energy. And so we like put it off because we're just like, telling ourselves that. But the way that I think about it is like making a commitment to yourself is like one of the best forms of self-care. And like, why is it the commitment to ourselves that we let go first? Like,
Hmm.
we'll show up to class and we'll do the assignments and we'll hang out with friends and we'll do all the other things that we've added to our list, or to our plate, which are not bad things inherently. But then it's like when it comes to something for ourselves, like I'm gonna go to the gym today. Why is that the first thing to go? Like that's the first thing to go. Maybe because there's no accountability except for you. But like that's a promise that you made to yourself. And so like self-care and self-confidence comes with like following through on the things that you say you're gonna do for yourself. And like if you had a friend that constantly said, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this, and never did it, you'd be a little frustrated. But then with ourselves, we're like, it's fine. Like I don't really need to go to the gym.
Yeah.
But we all know like you feel better after you go to the gym. So like that's also helping you. Like one, it's doing the thing you wanted to do in the first place. So getting off your to-do list. So you're gonna feel more productive. And you're gonna feel better after because endorphins have been released and you're feeling good. And maybe you met some people while you're at the gym and it was turned into a social thing. And so, like why do we do that? Why is the first thing to go something that we actually want for ourselves? And we will, prioritize every other thing on the list um, than ourselves. I just find that interesting. So maybe we catastrophize and maybe we maximize just be like, I don't have the capacity for that, but we make the capacity for other things. So
Yeah.
we just need to figure out, what's our priority. And like at the end of the day, are you going to be mad that you didn't go to the gym? Or are you going to be mad that you didn't eat right? Or you didn't meal prep, whatever your, lunch was going to be? Like, are you going to be mad at that? Are you going to regret that? If so, then that's a promise that you actually do want to keep to yourself. And so it should be a prioritize and you should like, make that a priority for the day.
For sure. And I feel like there's two different types of people. There's the people who like don't even set priorities for the day
Yeah.
or they don't have a to-do list, so they have no idea what they're doing and they're just getting pulled 15 million different directions. So they have no idea what's happening or what to choose when because like making so many decisions in the moment costs a lot of energy, so that might drain your battery more.
Yeah.
Or there's the other people like myself who
Yeah.
have too many priorities, too many things, and they're like top 3 is
Mm-hmm.
like 20 micro within the 3. And so like actually being intentional with, okay, what do I want to get done by the end of today? And what would make me feel good are going to be your top 3. Stick with that so then you don't feel overwhelmed within your to-do list.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can actually be intentional with what you're doing. I know for me, when I just like jot down like all the things but don't make that top 3, I then start that overwhelm cycle of like, how am I going to get all this stuff done? But all this stuff has to get done. Yet, like, the due date for that like assignment or whatever is like 2 days away. And it's like, it can be turned in on that due date. It's not that big of a deal.
Yeah. Yeah. So one of the things I like to do too that made me think of it is I can't remember what it's called. It has a name for it, but it's like basically a chart of 4 different things, which obviously I'm a list person, so I'm speaking to those type of people. But basically there's the urgent category, like urgent and important. So like you were saying, like, okay, an assignment could be really urgent, like meaning like there's a time aspect to it, but maybe it's not the most important thing for today. Like there is a deadline for it, but like it's not the utmost importance. Maybe it's only a 2% assignment. But you have another assignment that's also urgent and important, like because it's also due tonight, but it's worth 20% of your grade. So which one are you going to prioritize? You should prioritize the 20%. So there are times where you have to like say, okay, this is super important, something that I really want to do, but there's no time frame on it. It's not urgent. So like, I mean with us, like, okay, I want to record a podcast episode. there's not a due date. I mean, we've set due dates probably for ourselves so when we want to release episodes, but there's not a certain time where we're like, this has to be done, and like people will rely on me if it's not done. And so it's like, it's very important to me. I want to get it done, but I can push that off to a little bit later. And so prioritizing like the urgency, like the time aspect to it, but then also like the importancy too. But speaking to the people that kind of, flow throughout the day and don't have a list and get pulled in 15 different directions, I think one thing that those people can learn, and like both, I'm talking to both spectrums here, is like boundaries. And I think that we think it's rude to set boundaries or to say no. But with my friends that are like that get pulled in every single direction, it's because they're saying yes to every single thing. And they think that that is helpful, which it is. But then they get so burnt out and so spread thin, saying yes to everything and thinking that that's going to help, that they actually can't like fulfill the thing that they said yes to. And so I've kind of like told some of my friends, like, hey, you have to have boundaries, because when you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. And so you need to make sure that what you're saying yes to is like important to you. So you will put the energy into it, because if it's not, you're going to half do it. And like, do you want to give someone your half, or do you want to give them your all? And so that's kind of been a conversation that we've had of just like, it's not rude to have boundaries and say no. Or you could say, not right now, because this week is insane, but next week, let's make it happen. And so like your boundary could just be like, I really want to do that. Like, that is important to me. I know it's important to you, but like, can we push it to next week? Or can we set a time next month or something like that? And so like boundaries aren't rude. They're actually like very helpful, because you're going to show up with more energy because you actually have the energy to give, as opposed to just like, yeah, I'll go to this event, I'll do this. And like, if you're a super social person, you may have 5 social events that day and you're like, oh my gosh, like, what am I going to do? Like, you're stressing yourself out, and like, you're not going to be at your top game because you said yes to everything. And so for me, like, boundaries is just so important. And it's not rude to say no. You're just figuring out how you can make it work where you can show up with that full battery percentage and not just be totally burnt out.
Yeah. I feel like the power of saying no to others and yourself is like the biggest superpower you can make. When I first started my podcast and I was like in the like, what do you call it? Immature age of like growing my podcast where I had no idea what I was doing. I made this episode called Your Biggest Superpower is Saying No, or like setting yourself for your own boundaries for yourself. And I find that like when people struggle with confidence or like self-confidence, it's because they don't trust themselves to say no to others or to themselves. Or when they make a commitment to themselves, they like let's for instance say like they said, I want to go to the gym, and then they're like, I don't really feel up to going to the gym, and they don't even like go for a walk at the gym. Like, it doesn't have to be this full on workout, but at least like getting there, I think, is that like saying, I did this, I told myself I was going to do it, and I committed to it. But if you don't keep your self commitments, it's going to be hard to trust yourself, because again, like you were saying, like with other people, we say no, or we try and like trust them. Are you going to trust someone who never follows through on their actions? It's the same thing with yourself. If you don't follow through with the action that you told yourself you were going to do, how are you going to trust yourself?
Yeah, I think that's where it comes back to like SMART goals too, of like making them reasonable and making them attainable. Because I think we can have good intentions of like, let's say you are so focused on the end game where you're like, let's say, we're using the gym as an example. Like, I want to like look in the mirror and feel good about myself. Like, that's the goal. Or like, I want to be this certain number on the scale. Or when I do my, body scan, I want to have this percentage of muscle mass. Like, so you can have a number, you can have a thing of just like a feeling of like, I want to look good, I want to feel good. Like, summer's coming up, I'm going to be in my swimsuit. I don't want to be like questioning every photo that's ever taken. Like, that could be your end goal. And so then the problem is like, you need little daily goals, you need little daily things, because that is going to stress you out. Like, if you're like, I want to have a 6-pack, that's my goal. And then you like look down, you're like, I don't have it yet. Like, it's, you go to the gym one time, you're like, I don't have it. And so it's like, you're going to get slowly frustrated every time you go to the gym when you don't have that end goal that you want. So you need to have these little mini minor goals that you can like focus on the daily. So like, let's just say to get to that end goal, I need to at least walk 30 minutes a day, or at least go to the gym or something like that. And so that is what you're committing to. You're not committing to this end goal, because that's going to stress you out. And that is where I think, and this is totally coming from like, personal experience. But that is where like perfectionism happens and actually keeps you from being productive, to where you want to do it so perfect, you want to do it so right, you want to have this perfect meal plan and this perfect exercise regimen that you never mess up on, and that's going to get you to your goal, and it is. But if you only rely on that and you're not willing to do it messy in the meantime, you may not do it at all. And so that's kind of been like a quote that I've been thinking about a lot recently. It's just like, it's better to do it messy than not do it at all. And so like, it's better to go to the gym and leave after 15 minutes of doing, aerobic stuff. And like, I'm bored. That's still better than not going, because you were like, if I go to the gym, it's got to be an hour and a half long workout and I've got to do this and this and this, and it's got to be perfect. And it's like, no, like just show up, just do the thing. And maybe it doesn't go exactly as planned, but you still did it. And so that's where like a lot of people will say, like, if you put out your like workout outfit the night before, or whatever, and then you actually get it, by the time you actually get it on, most people actually end up going to the gym. Like if they're like not wanting to go, but they can get themselves to do the first task, which is put the outfit on and lace up the shoes and like, fix the hair, do whatever. Most of the time you're like, I'm already here. Let me just go. And so that's kind of the thing of like, what's a minor goal that you can set and do that. And once you've done it, you're like, okay, I might as well do the whole thing. And
Yeah.
so do it messy. Like do it messy. It doesn't have to be perfect. And so perfectionism actually like breeds like unproductivity. And so, let's focus on the little minor things too. It doesn't have to be this grand scheme that's perfect.
Yeah, for sure. There's been a few times where like I go to the gym and I'm like full on just giant sweatshirt, hood over my
Mm-hmm.
head, and I'm just driving in my car with like that angry face. My hair's not even done yet, and I'm like, we're getting there, and once I get there, it'll be fine. No one
Yeah.
will see me anyways, except the people at the gym, and they're not judging me anyways because they're so in tuned into their workout. So like show up with clothes on and then just get there,
Yeah.
and you'll figure everything out later.
Even if
Um
it's
yeah.
begrudgingly getting there.
For sure. You had mentioned that perfectionism is something that you were speaking to yourself. Could you tell a story or a time that you struggled with perfectionism and how that kept you from reaching your goals?
Gosh, my entire life. About almost 27. So 27 years. Um, so this was funny, is like and no hate to my family at all, but like I grew up in a really perfect family. I mean, like my sister is 3 years older than me, and like I really cannot recall a huge mistake that she made where I'm like, oh, she's making all the mistakes, so I'm gonna learn from that. Like she was just good, like just good at everything she did, and like was like respectful, following the rules. And so I was like, oh, gosh, I guess I have to do that too. But like I have a little bit of me that's kind of rebellious too, and so going into college, I was like, like I want to be perfect, but then I also want to be bad at the same time. And so for me, I think it was college where I was like, the only thing I can be perfect on is my grades. And so I'm going to just like hone in and just go all out. And then junior year, I literally had a mental breakdown. I was like, okay, I'm putting too much pressure on this. Like my grades are fine. I'm going to get into grad school. I'm going to be fine. And so why am I stressing out so much? And I was putting all of my worth and my identity in that. And I came up short every time. And I was like not feeling confident in myself because like I would get like a 93 and be like, I could have gotten a 100. Like, where was that 7%? And then like my friends would be like, you got a 93. Like, we barely passed. Why are you mad right now? And it kind of hit me. I was like, why am I mad right now? Like, like high school me would have been like ecstatic that I'm passing college. And so why did I set the goal so high and so unattainable that like I'm not even happy with good results now? So this, like coming into grad school, obviously, as you know, people are very open about their grades and stuff too. At least like my friend group, we've had to say, let's stop sharing grades. I love you guys. I know you're doing well. If you're not doing well, let me know and we can like tutor each other. But if you are doing well, maybe like keep it to yourself. And so there was a time where like every time we got a grade, we would send in a chat like, 83, 82, whatever. And so we're all like, that's constantly leading to comparison. And so I just like sent them a message. Like it took me until the last try to send a message and say, hey, I love you guys. I know you're all doing well. I will not be sharing my grades. If you ask me, that's fine. But like I will not be openly like sharing it in the chat, because then everyone shares it and then like it just leads me to think that I'm not doing as good as I can. But it really comes down to, am I retaining the information? That's the question that we need to be asking. And so after that test, did I feel prepared? That should be the question we're asking, not like, did I get 100? And so this led me to perfect family, whatever. Didn't really believe in counseling until I got to chiro school, and I was like, let's go see the counselor for perfectionism. And I remember thinking, what am I going to have to say? Like, I don't have any trauma, like, nothing major. Like, I know there's something wrong with me, but like, I don't know why. And so I remember the first day I was like, I'm not going to have anything to talk about. And I think all she said was like, hey, how's it going? 60 minutes later, I had shared everything about all of these like goals and ideas, and having goals is good, but that can also lead to like, are these goals realistic? Because like you seem like you're shooting a little too much in the stars right now, and it's stressing you out that you're not in the stars. And so that's where if your worth and identity is attached to it. And so a couple sessions in, a lot of things that was said to me was like, everything you're saying is very black and white. Like you have to be 100, like if you don't get 100, it's a zero. It's like, that's not true. Or like if you don't pass this class, you're going to fail. Like, no, like if you don't pass this exam, you're going to fail the class. It's like, no, like it's not all or nothing. This is not an action potential. Like it's not like, it's not all or nothing. There is gray, and that's the beauty of the gray, and that you have room for error. It's not black and white. There are second chances, things like that. There are multiple assignments for that reason, multiple exams. And so she was saying like, it's not all or nothing. Like everything you're saying acts like if you don't do it today, it will not get done. And she's like, that's not true. And she's like, it also feels like your goals are so high that even if you didn't meet them, you'd still be average. And that's okay. Like sometimes it's okay to be average if you have another class that's taking your full priority and like everything that you have. In some of your other classes, it's okay to be average. It's fine. And that's totally okay, and you're not going to fail. And so I think the all or nothing language, I've come aware of how much I was using it, of like, if I don't get this done today, like the world ends. It's like, that's literally not true. It's such a minor thing. And that's kind of where I was saying of like, let's make a chart of like, what is priority of like percentage when it comes to school, of like what exam, if we have 2 exams on the same day, which one are you going to pick? Which one is the priority? And sometimes they're the same, but most of the time there's one that outweighs the other. And so how can we prioritize the perfectionism of like, I'm going to study really, really hard for this one, and then maybe this one not as much. And you have to kind of be okay with the areas that you have to let off the gas so you can be faster in the other areas. So for me, it was the all or nothing language. It was the committing to too many things and having too many things on my plate. And so making sure I'm saying no to certain things, or just setting boundaries to like, not this week because this week is crazy, but maybe next week. And then, yeah, I kind of realized that I was actually less productive. And then I would be mad that I'm not productive. And then I wanted, it was just a cycle. And so, yeah, honestly, for me, like counseling was the main thing. And then writing it down a list and making my top 3. Exactly what you just said. So, yeah, I think it has good intentions of like, I want to be the best I can be. And I told her that. I said, I like come from a family like that. And I like biblically believe that we should like give our all and everything, and like, and she's like, yes, you should, but like you're giving more than your all, and therefore you have nothing left. And she was like, are you, she's like, you're saying you're a Christian with all these things, are you also like getting time in the word? I was like, no. And she's like, so you're saying that's the driving factor for putting your all and everything, but you're not prioritizing the driving factor because you're so busy with all the things you said yes to, and you're prioritizing things that really aren't as important. So that's a really good point. And so like actually like rest, and actually, setting aside time where you don't do anything, or you spend time in the word, whatever that looks like for you, journaling, working out, whatever is your thing for self-care. Like if you're not doing those things, how are you going to be productive in all the other things you have on your list? Like you have to prioritize yourself first. And it comes down to like, what's the promise that you say committed to yourself? Are you fulfilling that?
Yeah, no, that was all so good. I feel like a lot of the times with like high achievers, they tend to end up coming into grad school. And like they want to maintain their status, but now we're surrounded by 5 million other high achievers that are like constantly trying to get better. And you're trying to be the 1% of the 1%. And it's like literally it's not about everyone else. It's about you, and like asking yourself like, who I had to ask myself this is like, who are you trying to make proud? And like where is your priority going? And is that in God? Is that like your family? Is that like the dude who sits in front of you in class? Like who are you putting in that priority seat? And is that the person you actually want to be in that priority seat? And that's where, like you were saying, setting those like, what is the highest priority? But then I think really deep down, it's getting at like, who is the center of your priority, and then you can then start creating that list of what is the highest priority. Because I was just about to ask you, like, how do you set what's the highest priority for you?
Mm-hmm. One thing I would say that I think is helpful is, I mean, it can go either way, but like personality tests for me have been really helpful. I think some people get put into a box and like, this is the way that I am. I'm like, okay, you can also grow and be better. Like, you don't have to be that way if you don't like it. So for me, like personality tests have been so important because a lot of times it'll say like it'll remind me what is my like core desire. Like, there are certain personality types that really want to impress others, or there's personality types that like really want to prove it to themselves. Kind of like you were saying, or just the Joe Schmo sitting right next to you, like I want to like make him know that I'm smart. And so like who is it that like who are you trying to impress? Yeah, I love that you said that. So for me, like I honestly, I kind of mentioned having the friends and the comparison game, but like I really am not typically comparing with other people. I'm comparing with myself, and so I think I will like have a certain, grade, or it's just easy to put grades because it comes in numbers. But like I'll have a certain grade, and on the next exam, if I don't get that same grade, I'm mad. And I'm like, what if I just did really like what if the first exam was easier? And what if the information just made more sense to me? And so like I'm constantly comparing with myself. And so one of the things that we talked about in counseling too was like let's take adjusting for a second. Like everyone struggles with their own adjusting, and some people are like great at cervicals and some people are great at thoracics, and then it switches next try and you suck at cervicals and you suck at thoracics. And so I kind of told her, I was like, hey, I'm plateauing in a certain area and I'm mad because I'm not where I want to be. And she was like, okay, well, are you like practicing? And I was like, I mean, in FSA I'm avoiding it at all costs. And she was like, well, like how are you going to get better if you avoid it? And I was like, I mean, I see what you're saying, but no, because I'm an FSA and I don't want to fail. And she's like, but I thought it was just like pass fail class. Like, so aren't you supposed to like take risks because it's kind of a low stakes? Like you're just there to get better. I was like, yeah, but like I'm like with a partner. I don't want to embarrass myself. She's like, okay, so what I'm hearing is you would rather like you have more fear of embarrassing yourself or coming off as not a good adjuster than actually like learning, putting yourself in a scenario where you get better. I was like, yeah, I mean, that's a really good point when you put it like that. So basically, I was struggling with something and plateauing, and then I was avoiding it at all costs, which made the plateau even longer, even deeper. So then I was even more mad. I was like, oh, why am I not where I want to be? She's like, because you're not putting in the work, and like, yes, you're showing up, but like you're avoiding the things that scare you, and so that how are you going to get better? And so I think that's a good thing too of just like, who am I trying to impress? And so what's the end goal? Like, am I trying to make myself proud and know that I can do this? Am I trying to impress others? Am I trying to, where's my worth? Where's my identity? I think that's where it can get really tricky if, especially if you don't have a faith background of like, you're going to try to impress people in the world and you can never make everyone happy. And so for me, like, that's where it's like getting back in the word of like, it's actually not about my grades. It's actually about who God says I am. And he created me, and he didn't create me to get 100 on every exam. Like he created me to have a much greater purpose than that. Um, and so, yeah, I think it comes down to like, who are you? Who do you want to be? And are you doing the things that are between those 2 points? Like who I am right now, who I want to be. Are you fearful of the things that are in the middle, so you're avoiding them at all costs? Or are you stepping into that every day? Whether it's one thing of like, during FSA, I'm going to pick the hardest adjustment or the listing that I don't want to write down because I'm going to mess up documentation. Like, am I avoiding it at all costs? Then you're probably like not going to be happy at the end of the day. So take the challenge, take the step, especially when you have areas that are like low risk. Like you're not going to fail the class if you mess up that adjustment and it just does not go as planned. And so, I mean, that's something I've had a conversation this week and I learned, I mean, myself, I'm talking to myself. It doesn't just all solve when you get to try 7, but honestly, it like impacts even more because you're like, I'm about to go to clinic and this is not going the way that I thought it was going to be. And so, like push yourself to get into the things that are scary, to get out of your comfort zone. That's the only way that you can get better.
For sure. Yeah. And I think, like you were saying, first you have to figure out like who you are and like what your priority is. I'm curious, did you take the Enneagram test?
Yes, I
Yes.
did.
Did you get a 3?
I'm an 8.
Really?
I'm an 8.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think the difference between 3s and 8s is 3s typically care more what people think, and
Okay.
8s do not typically do not give a crap what people think. And so, which is a blessing and a curse. Like there's times where it's like, I don't care what anyone thinks, and like I'm going to speak up for the majority because I know you're all thinking it, but like I'm going to be the bad guy. And that is a nice thing about apes. It's like I don't care what you think because I'm going to say what needs to be said. And people are like, I'm so glad you said that. Like I didn't want to say that because I was fearful of what other people thought. And I was like, I really don't care. And so that is nice, but then there's also things where it's like you can take that in a bad way of like, I don't care what other people think. So I'm gonna be just a menace today. It's like, okay, that you can't it's very like give and take. You have to be smart with it. And you have to use, and this is a joke with my friends, but I'm like the most eight there ever was. But I've also like ran into previous eights that are very toxic, and that was me at one point. And I'm like using my eight for good. Like I'm trying to use my eight for good. Like speaking up for the injustices in the world and like speaking up for the things that people don't want to say because like you're the bad guy if you say it. And like there's been so many times people come up to me even this trimester and been like, oh, I'm so glad you said that because I really wanted to say it and no one said it, or I had the same question and like I didn't want to look stupid saying it. I was like, I don't care. I was like, I pay to be here. I'm going to ask the stupid question. I don't care. And so you can use it for good or you can totally use it for evil. And so yeah, I very similar to a 3, but definitely a little bit more on the 8 aspect.
Yeah, I'm curious because you did say that you like struggle with sometimes like when you're going into FSA, which is an adjusting class, where like you're scared of the person thinking that like you're not a good adjuster. So it does sound like there's still that like self-critical thought, which is probably where that perfectionism plays in. For the people who like are afraid to speak up for themselves and ask that like question because they're afraid of looking stupid, what would you say to them?
Yeah, I mean, for me, as far as the example you just gave, it's a pride issue that I'm working on. Like it's not a I want to impress other people. It's that I want to come off a certain way. So it's a
Mhm.
pride thing. So for me, I have to figure out how to drop pride levels. But to answer that question, yeah, I mean, the biggest way to care for yourself is to advocate for yourself. And right now, like just using school as the number one example, but this could be the same thing in the work world. And I'll give an example of that in a second. But in school, like you pay to be here, and that doesn't mean you should walk around being entitled of like I own this place. But like you should not leave a class with more questions than you came in. Like you should get the answer because that is what the professors are here for, and they really do want to help with that. And there's times where they have a gap of students in class where maybe some students are here on a certain topic and some students are here and they've got to figure out how can I keep these people engaged so they don't get bored, but keep these people on the same level where they're not so confused. So like, how can I manage that gap? And so there are times where it's like maybe there's not space for it in the class, but they will 100% meet with you outside of office hours or just at the end of class or beginning of class if you have more questions than you came in with. And so you have to ask the questions and you have to be okay with not looking stupid because at the end of the day, you pay to be here. So like you should get out of it what you put into it. And so that's my number one thing. But when it comes to like work, and I gave an example to a friend a couple months ago about this. And I told her, I was like, do you think like good guys, finish last or do you think good guys like finish first? And she was like, ah, man, I mean, I feel like they finished first. I was like, they should. They totally should. So here's the problem. Sometimes the good guys don't want to ask for things because it comes off as like you're a bad guy. I was like, an example, at my previous job, I'd been there for some time, but so had everyone else. And I was one of the newer ones there. And my boss, we had done like quarterly reviews. She was like, hey, like, you're exceeding this area, you're exceeding da da da. And I was like, okay, well, then I want a raise. And she was like, kind of taken back by that. And I was like, I mean, you just said I was exceeding in every single category. So, like, that's great, but like, that doesn't pay the bills. And she kind of laughed. And I was like, I mean, I'm laughing, but I'm also serious. Like, I do have bills to pay. And she's like, oh, yeah, I guess you're right. She's like, okay, yeah, I'll give you a raise. And like, didn't even think about it. And so, the people that are so nice sometimes don't advocate for themselves. And like, you could be at a job and there were people that were at the same position as me, had been there longer, but weren't making as much money as me, which is crazy. And I mean, I feel bad, but at the same time, it's like they weren't advocating for themselves. They're doing everything right and they're exceeding in every category. They just aren't taking that extra step to be like, okay, now that I've done well, what's my reward?
Mm.
And like not that everything is instant gratification. You're not always going to get the raise. You're not always going to get the promotion. But there are times when you have to say, okay, like based off of your standards, I'm exceeding. So like, how are you going to financially compensate for that? Or like, um, what am I getting out of this? Like, and so I've been in jobs where the reason I left was because there was nowhere to go. There was no growth. And we had a conversation about it, and I just said, hey, I'm not meant for a place where I'm at the ceiling. Like, that's just not fun for me. I have nothing to look forward to. Like, I am constantly wanting to challenge myself, and like, I need to be humbled, and the only way to be humbled is to challenge myself and to fail time and time again. And so I just kind of told them, and luckily she was very well versed in the Enneagram, and so we had conversations about like, I'm an 8. Like, I was like, I'm an 8, and like, I can't be at a place where like I'm just stagnant and I'm not good with that. Like, I'm not comfortable with that. That makes me uncomfortable being in a comfortable place the entire time. And so I was like, if you're saying I have nowhere to go financially, nowhere to go as far as like learning things, then I got to start looking for another job. And she was like, I mean, when you put it that way, it makes perfect sense. I was like, you know who I am. You knew this when you hired me, and you know some personality. So I've got to start looking elsewhere. And that's when led me into the last job that I was talking about where I got a raise. But, and so you have to know yourself. So it comes down to, who are you? What do you want in life? What are you doing to bridge that gap between the two places? And then, ask for things, like advocate for things, ask questions. You have to be okay with looking stupid, because do you want to look stupid now when you're in a class of peers that probably have the same question and probably also don't want to look stupid? Or do you want to look stupid when your patient asks you 10 years down the road, hey, what do you think about this? And you're like, oh, I thought no one would ever ask me that because I skipped that chapter on purpose because it was confusing. Like, do you want to be humiliated now? Like, humiliated, it really is never as bad as you think it is. Or do you want to be humiliated later when you're supposed to know that because you're a doctor? Like, it's so much better now to like fail, quote unquote, rather than later on when you're expected to know that. And there's no one you can like call up really quick. Like, you're face to face with the patient and you're like, I thought no one was going to ask me that. I thought I could just avoid it for the rest of my life. It's going to come around. So you might as well ask it now. And if you don't learn it now in school, like, it's going to come back on board. So you better pay attention,
Yeah.
So ask the question.
And the thing is like most of the time we're afraid of the people who are going to judge us that aren't even paying attention in class. Because we know there's still those people who are like scrolling on their phones or like they're spacing out in class and not paying attention. They probably don't even know that you're asking the question. Or if they are judging you, it's because within themselves, they're upset that they couldn't ask the question and that they
Yeah.
didn't have the confidence to do that. And like this is coming from like I'm one of those people where like I get that gut feeling where I'm like, should I say something? Should I not? I don't know. Is this going to look stupid? And I've been working towards just like raising my hand, blurting it out, or at least minimum going up to the professor after class and being like, hey, I have a question on this.
Yeah.
And like they will always be like, oh yeah, it's like this. Or like sometimes there's been a few times where I get just a like an answer that's just like straightforward and I was like, that was kind of rude, but okay. And it's like you just shake it off. Like they're still human beings and you might get a no sometimes, but like that's the worst possible thing that could happen. And I think I would hear that saying multiple times, like, oh, the worst thing that they could say is no. And I'm like, but no sounds so terrifying because I never had it happen to me before. And it's like you have to have it happen to you a couple of times before you realize that it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
But you got to take that first step and be okay with it first.
Yeah, like, don't cut yourself short before someone else can. Like, and there's things where it's like, I'm not going to get a raise, so I just won't even ask. What if you do, though? Like, what if you do ask and you do get it? You're cutting yourself short. Or, like, that's where the rejection therapy, comes into play, where people will be like, they'll, like, walk on a plane and the pilot will be like, hey, welcome aboard. And you're like, can I sit in the cockpit? And you're fully expecting them to say no. And there's been videos where they're like, yeah, sure. And you're like, what, really? I've always wanted to sit in the cockpit, but like I figured that was like illegal. And they're like, yeah, sure, I don't care. And so like there's been times where people totally surprise you and say yes, and you're like, I would have never asked that. I would have never had that opportunity because I figured they were going to say no. So like if you're expecting the no, you're not shocked by the no. You're going to be pleasantly surprised when they say yes. And so like why? What's there to be like scared of? You know it's going to be a no. But if it's not, you could get so much out of it. And so those videos always crack me up where it's like, rejection therapy. Some of it's like total secondhand embarrassment. I could never do it. But sometimes it's like, yeah, like you should ask the question. That makes perfect sense. And here's the thing I would say about like, your example of like speaking up in class. Who's to say that what you have to say, either one, someone else isn't thinking it, or two, someone else has never thought that before? Because you're going to come in with inherent bias from your previous jobs or where you grew up or your family or whatever, or friends and family that have certain things going on. So it's going to make you ask the question that maybe someone else isn't thinking to ask. And so it'll spur other thoughts where you're like, I'm sitting over here, never asked that question in my life. I'm like, that is so interesting. I've never even considered that because that's just not where I was going with it. And so who's to say that does not unlock a door for someone else? And so, say the thing out loud. And it's good to get it for yourself too, behind the scenes, whether it's after class or whatever, or sending an email. But like, who's to say someone else in the class doesn't also need that? And so like your words have power and your questions have power. And I've had people come up to me, when I've asked a question too, and they're like, I wanted to say that, couldn't figure out how to articulate it. Like I was thinking all class, how do I don't even know how to word it to where the professor knows what I'm asking. So like, I'm so glad you said that because I've been thinking that. I didn't even know after class what I was going to say. So I was going to avoid asking it altogether because I just couldn't figure out how to articulate it. And so you, for yourself, like you are really good at articulating things. So like use that's your superpower right there, is that you are comfortable speaking to people. You are comfortable, you know how to, package it up in a nice little bow and present it to the professor and be like, help. And some people are struggling with that. And like they have all the components and they have all the parts and they're like, how do I make it pretty where they know what I'm talking about? And so use that as your superpower. And other people will, one, come and thank you for it. And two, you're going to get a lot out of it too, because they may say no, it may be a short answer and you go find someone else that wants to take the time of day. But sometimes they are like, that's a great question. Let's talk about that next class too. Like let's open up next class with that because that was really interesting. Yeah. So it could totally work out in your favor too. So it's like the what if they say no? Okay, what if they say yes? Like it's a 50-50 question. So what if they say yes? You're only focusing on the what if they say no, but what if they say yes?
Mm-hmm. I might need to try that, like going on next time I go on the airplane, be like, hey, can I sit in the cockpit?
Yeah, and you're like fully expecting no, mm-hmm. And you'd be like, okay, I figured not. Yeah. But there have been times where they're like, yeah. You're like, wait, really? And they're like, yeah, sure. And you're like, what? Like, I've never gotten to do that. So like, you never know.
Yeah. That's amazing. Oh my goodness. So, okay, speaking of confidence, I feel like especially within like chiropractic school or just like becoming an entrepreneur yourself, like you have to market yourself. And I even feel like nowadays like marketing yourself has this like sort of like, nah, like that's only for like influencers or like future business owners and I don't know if I'm going to be a future business owner. Why do you think it's important for students and other professionals to market themselves?
Yeah, I think marketing yourselves, like you said, influence is like, it's my influencer era. It comes off as like, well, you're conceited for marketing yourself. No, you're not. Because here's the deal. Whether you want to open your own business or not, let's say you're like, I want no pressure. I just want to like come in and adjust. And like, I'll be an associate. I'll be, whatever, a partner. Like I'll be a contracted employee. I don't want any of the responsibility of owning a business. Okay, that's fine. You could be the best adjuster in the world. But if no one knows about you, it doesn't matter. You can't keep your patients. And so it's so important. And like, you're going to have to market yourself for clinic. You don't really have a choice. Externals are not handed to you, maybe like sparingly, but you have to market yourself. And so one, it's whatever you want to do in life, figure out how to communicate it. And I told you this story before, but I was in a coffee shop in college and I was telling a friend, we were catching up on life. And I said, hey, I'm trying to find a chiropractic internship. I'm struggling. Like, trying to figure out who even wants to do that because that's not a really big thing where I was going to school. Everything was PT, like athletic trainer, and there was like not a lot of chiropractors involved at our school. And so I was just telling her my struggle, and like, this is what I want to do. I'm trying to figure out how to do it. And like, lo and behold, someone sitting behind us was like, I'm not trying to eavesdrop, but I'm a chiropractor. Like, do you need an internship? I was like, what? So sometimes it is talking about what you want to do, even if you don't have it figured out. Talking about what you want to do wherever you go with the people that you're with, and you have no idea who is in the vicinity or who knows someone who knows someone who knows someone, and it's all about who you know. And so sometimes you're like just like out of frustration, like, I'm trying to do this and like it's not working, and then like it'll pop up and you're like, oh wow, that was easy. Like I just had to talk about what I wanted wherever I went with who I was with, and sometimes things come up that way. So market yourself is also just have what you want to do in a little package, like I said, like a little elevator speech or whatever, and how can you communicate to others. But then also like, marketing yourself is being confident in what makes you different. Because when I graduate with my class, every single one of us is going to know how to do adjustments. But why should I go to you versus, the other, if we were on the same street why should I go to you on Main Street versus me? And it comes down to personality and being able to communicate. And I think, because an adjustment's an adjustment. You, one, can learn it. Two, you can get better at adjusting. Like, that's not a problem. People aren't going to stay specifically for your adjustments, most likely. They're probably going to stay for the follow-up that you do after your communication, or your history taking, that you actually care and you are empathetic of what's going on and you want to get a diagnosis and you want to have a treatment plan. Like, they are in it for you, and like, you are in it for them. You know what I mean? They can tell when you're in it for them or if you're in it for money. And so you can tell if someone's just marketing themselves to like get, just to get noticed, or if they want to like, I want to help people, but I have no one to help. So like, please come in, like, let me help you. And so all that to say, you could be the best adjuster in the world, but if no one knows about you, you're not going to be able to maintain your business. And if you're a partner or you're an associate, they're going to be like, I mean, you're not really bringing in anything. Like, you're a great adjuster. Don't get me wrong. Like, people that come in love you, but like, how are you, like, you can't just have 5 patients. Like, that's not beneficial to me as the business owner, with the one with all the responsibility and paying the rent. You have low responsibility because you're just wanting to get in and do what you do best, but you kind of have to have a little business mind to it, because at the end of the day, this is a business and there are bills, whether you like it or not. And you do have, the money is attached to this, because that is one thing, like with documentation and with legalities and stuff, like, healthcare is not like other businesses where you can just give everything for free. Like, you can just do giveaways, stuff like that. It's actually illegal because it's considered kickbacks. And so you can't do that. So you actually have to be like, I know this costs money. So you have to know why you are valuable and package that up in a little bow and communicate that of like, I'm valuable because I care. And unfortunately, there are chiropractors, there's doctors, there's, whatever profession that can do the thing, but don't care. And you're not going to get that from me. And you just have to say that, like, you're not going to get that from me. Like, I care, maybe a little too much. And even if I don't know what to do on a certain adjustment, I'm going to figure it out. Like, I'm going to find the answer because I care. And there are people that won't put in the time because they don't care. And so, I think people just want to know that, they just want to know that you care. And that will come across when you're marketing yourself. And so if you're worried about being conceited and coming off that way, you probably aren't conceited. So you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to worry about coming off that way.
Yeah, I feel like nowadays people think that marketing yourself is just like posting on social media, which is like a part of it nowadays, but like there's so much more to it. I'm curious, what misconceptions do you think people have about marketing?
Mm. Yeah, I mean, kind of like you just said, it's like the idea that like social media is going to bring in conversions, as they call it, of just like the people that you're reaching on social media are gonna come in and see me and get adjusted. It's like, probably not, because people that you're showing to social media are probably already friends. They probably already know about you. So it's the stepping out in faith at the grocery store. It's the stepping out in faith at your local gym of saying, hey, I know you're doing the squat. Like, I actually do squat assessments in my office. If you want, like, whatever it is, whatever you do, hang around the places that you enjoy, and you have to be a little extroverted, which is really painful for the people that are introverted. They're like, freaking out right now, but you have to be. You have to be, because you could be so good in office one-on-one with someone, but if you can't get someone in your office to be one-on-one, it won't matter. And so you have to have these moments of faith, these moments of courage where you step out for 30 seconds and say, hey, it's a little awkward, but I'm in the grocery store line and I saw that, she's clearly in pain. Whatever. You can say, hey, I'm not trying to overstep. I just saw that you were in pain and I just want to make sure you're okay. I'm actually a chiropractic student intern over at Park University. I don't know if you've ever heard of us, or if you've ever been to a chiropractor before. I don't know your thoughts on chiropractic. But I would love to help. And I think I see a lot of people with back pain, and I just looked like you had back pain. So here's my card, and I actually have like a digital business card, and I would just hand it out and say, here it is, take it or leave it. Like, I'm not trying to sell you anything, but like, it looked like you're in pain. And like, I've been there and I don't want you to be in pain. So if I can help, and maybe you don't have a resource and I can be that resource, or maybe it's, they throw away my contact and we never get to talk, and that's fine. But that's kind of that, like, maybe they say no and I'm expecting them to say no because you're a random person in the grocery store. Why would I, whatever. What if they say yes? One, I now have revenue that I wasn't expecting. Two, I have a patient I can help with because I can tell they're in pain. And so like, it's a win-win. And so like, kind of that same thing of like, I should put myself out there, and they're probably going to say no, but what if they say yes? And so you have to have that mindset of like not being scared, and like, you are not going to get better at communicating if you don't fail at communicating in the meantime. And that's part of the communication class. Like, we'll get up and we think we know what we're going to say. And like, we have it all right here. And then we go to say it and we say something so dumb. And we're like, why did I say that? Like, coming out of my mouth, it sounded so bad. And so you're only going to know that if it comes out of your mouth. So you have to practice. You have to practice. And practice marketing yourself among your friend group and be like, would you come see me? Like, based off of this alone. I've seen a thing too, really quick, that where people like record themselves doing a video and they will like turn off the video and they'll just listen to it. Or like, don't watch it, just listen to it. Okay. Would I come see myself based off of the sound of it? Okay. Turn off the sound. Would I just come to see me based off the video? Like, am I like this in the video where I'm like, I don't, that the person doesn't look confident. They're like, yeah, like, come see me, like I'm a really good adjuster. Like, I don't believe a word they're saying based off of their body language. And then the third time, watch it through with body language and say, does this person look confident? Can I trust them? And so that's one thing. If you're like scared to practice and fail among other people, you can do it by yourself too.
Yeah. And for all those like introverts that are out there, like think about, okay, why did I decide to go down this career path? I did this because I care about people. I want to get people I want to get people better. I want to get them out of pain. But if you don't speak to the person, how do they know that's your intention? People can't read minds, so you have to actually go and tell them. So like every time you're thinking, oh my goodness, this person thinks that I'm just going to be salesy and I'm just trying to get their money, be like, okay, no, my intention right now is to help this person that's in front of me at the grocery store who looks like they're in pain. If they're not, and maybe you just like interpreted the situation wrong, that's totally fine. But like your intention going in was to help that person. And if that is your intention, that's a great intention to have and the purpose you're coming into it. If the person interprets it a different way, then that's on them, not you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think number one biggest advice for sales or marketing or whatever is like, don't sell a product you don't believe in. So like, because they can read through the facade and you can read through it because you're like, I don't want, like, I'm selling something I don't really believe in. So like, if I, if I don't even know, let's give an example. I don't know. Let's just say shockwave therapy, which I fully believe in. Let's say shockwave. I'm like, you should come in and use our shockwave machine. Like, it's great. But I don't fully believe in it. They're like, you don't seem like you even want me to come into it. Like, and so is that a money thing or is that a thing you actually think helps? And so like they can read through it and it's not comfortable selling something that you don't agree with. So like if you would not go see a chiropractor that does a certain thing, maybe don't do that certain thing. Like, don't try to sell it because it makes money or whatever. Like, if you don't believe in it and you wouldn't go see a chiropractor and do it, then don't do it. Be the chiropractor that you would go see. You know what I mean? Like, if you want a chiropractor that listens to you, be the chiropractor that listens. If you want a chiropractor that only adjusts, be the chiropractor that only adjusts. Like, that's what you want. So why would you not want to be that person? Because that will be 100% true to you. And that'll be like, it aligns with who you are. So don't sell something that's not aligning with that. Because it's not going to sell very well, first of all. And second of all, you're going to be uncomfortable trying to sell it. So just throw that out the door. If you don't believe in it, get rid of it and only sell the things that you believe in. Like, I believe in being a diagnostician above all else. Like, I believe in that. And I believe in the adjustment, but I also believe in all the other things. Like, sell the things that you believe and why, and people will say, okay, that seems genuine. Because if it's like not authentic, they're going to tell and they're not going to come to you. Like, it all comes down to authenticity. And so you have to throw away anything you don't believe in.
Yeah, for sure. And we've been talking a lot about like in-person communication and marketing. How do you then translate that into posting online?
Posting online is tough because you don't know who's on the other end of it. And like, I can have a conversation with you and know a little bit of your background with chiropractic. But like, and this has been the cool thing about like when I go home, I'll have conversations with people and I'll have people like that are totally, we're in a bubble right now where everyone loves chiropractic. That's not reality when it comes to the real world. And there are people that have a lot of misconceptions and a lot of fears about chiropractic. And so kind of like I was saying, where talk about what you want to do wherever you go. I'll talk about chiropractic when I go home and it'll spur up some really cool conversations in person, which helps me then translate that to online because it gives me perspectives that I wasn't thinking of. Like, I'm like, chiropractic's great. So I only have the perspective, like, I believe in it. There are people that do not believe that. And so with the in-person conversations that you have where someone says, hey, I think chiropractic is a sham. I've had that. I've had someone tell me that. I'm like, okay, why? Like, this is great. Like, I'm not trying to debate you. I want to know what your thoughts are. And it all comes back to they had a really bad experience once before. Okay, well, I could say that about like an MD that I've been to before. I could say that about a dentist where I left with pain. Like, I could say that about any profession. I could say that I went to this, dinner and the service was terrible. So, like, I'm never going to have dinner again. No, I don't think so. Like, you're going to try somewhere that is better and the food is better and the service is better. And so, like, that's where you're kind of selling yourself, but you're like, that's totally valid that one, you have fears about that because it has been your personal experience. Thank you for telling me that, so I can not let that happen to anyone else. So thank you so then that can translate into social media where I post about this certain thing. And like I said, it's tough because you don't know who you're talking to and you don't want this to be like, this is advice for everyone, because it doesn't always work like that. If you have a certain diagnosis going on, this is not for you. It's hard because you don't have a person in front of you where it's personalized care. But those conversations with people can lead into better social media posts too. Does that kind of make sense? Where it's like, I know what people's fears are, I know what people's concerns are, I know what their ideas are. Therefore, my post can be tailored towards the people that love it, the people that hate it, and kind of try to address everyone in the room.
Yeah, for sure. And I even know for me when I like talk to like non-chiropractic people, I have like a list that I make in like my Notion where it's like Instagram post ideas. Now, have I gotten to all of them? No, because I'm doing 5 million other things. But eventually, like, I'll get to it, and that will, like, give me a brainstorm of, like, ideas of things that I can create because I've had this contact with someone else who isn't, like, who doesn't know about chiropractic, and then I can reach out to them without, like, just having to sit down at my computer and be like, okay, I'm on Canva. What do I make?
Yeah.
It's like when you
You're like
have
trying
those
to figure
conversations.
out,
Yeah.
you're trying to figure out who's going to be reading this. Because it's not just going to be you reading it. So you're like, I think this sounds great. Like and that's where like, if you have a post and you're like, you've got a draft, like show it to your friends. Like, does this make sense? I've done that with certain things too. Like, where I'm like, to me, it's not offensive at all. Is this offensive to anyone? And I'm like, poll the room with the people that you trust. And they're like, okay, to me, this little tiny part might be offensive. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Like, I didn't even think about that. And so now I can edit it. So like, be okay with like sharing the rough draft with people that you trust and you trust their opinions and say, does this come off in any certain way that you know me as a person, so you know that's not what I'm intending. But if you didn't know me, could it come off a certain way?
Yeah.
And could it be rude? And that's obviously not my intention. And so like have people that you trust that you give the rough draft to and you're like, this is messy. Like I was saying, do it messy before you try to do it perfect. And just give them the messy rough draft and be like, what do you think? And then a lot of times they'll give really great advice. And because they have their own bias and they have their own background and they've talked to people that have certain fears about things. And so you're pulling the room that they have as well. And so you can get really good feedback just asking for advice and being okay with asking and looking dumb in the process.
Yeah, I listened to a podcast like a long time ago, and they were like, if you don't look back in your life in like 5 years or even a year and be like, man, that was really dumb, or like, that looked really silly, or you're embarrassed, like, you didn't try hard enough to grow. And so,
Yeah.
like, if you post something like, I look back on my Instagram when I first started my Instagram for like nutrition and health coaching, and I was like, man, those like weird reels where like everyone did it to like whatever music and did a dance move. Like that was interesting, but like it got me started and it's where I am and it got me to where I am now. So I'd never take that back. But like talking about the point of like talking to other people, I literally was on a walk with a friend the other day and she's a dietitian. And she was explaining how she had like some knee pain and stuff like that. And I was like, okay. And I was thinking of ideas of my head of like what we could work on. But of course, like I wanted to like do some assessments on her first. And she was like, or I was talking to her and I had said, I think you need to do low diagonal sit with glute facilitation. She goes, huh? She was like, low diagonal sit facilitation. She's like, I know what glutes are. And it's just like, that just goes to show that like we learn all these words because we're in this realm of like grad school with all these big fancy words. We're like, you need to be able to dumb it down to like a 5-year-old level so people can understand it.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, going back all the way back to why should you ask questions is like maybe, that is going to also help you communicate it to someone else. So like maybe you're like you've got it down on lock and then you ask a question and the answer that you get is dumbed down. You're like, that's great. I can use that. Like I can use that like cuz sometimes we're so like in our brains, we're so intellectual sometimes that we do have a hard time of like okay, I can't just say, low diagonal sit to everyone because they're like, wait, what? So you have to know how to bridge the gap from where you started in chiropractic school, which was dumb, and where some of your patients might be, and that's perfectly okay because they're not in the school, and then hopefully where you are now, and you've got to figure out how can I bridge that gap to where it makes sense and like it's interesting to them and like they're not going to get bored. And so things like that too, where it's like going back to asking questions is like sometimes you'll get an answer that makes it so easy to package it up and communicate to someone else. And so ask the question and do the thing and be scared. And like you said, if you haven't been embarrassed in the past year, like you're not doing something right.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Landry, I've had so much fun with you on the podcast today. I ask every single guest at the very end this question. What would you tell your younger self?
Gosh, I think I would just say like, it's going to be okay. Like drop the pressure. Like you feel like the weight is on your shoulders. And when I was in high school, I remember having so many conversations about like, what am I going to do with my career? And I had friends that were like, I have no idea. I don't even know where I want to go with my career. And I was the total opposite where I had 15 different careers that sounded so interesting to me. And like, it was so crazy because it really came down to the college I went to. Like I would have a certain college that I would apply to for their music production program. Then I had a college that was like, if I wanted to go to like med school surgery route. Then I had one that was like, if I wanted to do business. Like, this is crazy. I really did. And I applied to colleges for the best programs because I was like, I could see myself doing all of those. And then I had one was like, okay, kinesiology, and that would lead me down the route of chiropractic. And so I had so many things that it was overwhelming because it all sounded interesting to me because I had a bunch of hobbies. And then it kind of came down to, okay, like pick one and like go all in. And like it doesn't have to be this pressure on like you have to make the right decision right now. My husband's a perfect example of that. He chose a decision, he stuck with it, he did it for a couple of years, and then he's like, I hate this. And so I was like, okay, let's pivot. Like you can restart, and that's okay too. So like it's fun to pick something and stick with it, but if you get halfway in and you're like, I actually hate this and I cannot see myself doing this every day, you're gonna hate the next 40 years of your life. So jump ship, find something that you do want to do so it doesn't feel like work. So I would tell my younger self, like, whatever you decide will be correct because it's going to be like authentically you. You're going to go all in because that's just who you are as a person. And it's okay. Like the pressure, you feel like it's on your shoulders, but like you are so critical in your thought process that you're not going to make a mistake. You know what I mean? Like you are so level headed when it comes to making decisions that you're not going to make the right decision. And if you do, you can always pivot. Like that's the beauty of second chances. That's the beauty of the gospel. Like that's the beauty of just having these opportunities where there are low stakes to fail and it's okay. And so I would just tell myself, like, it's good to have the goals, but like, don't put all your identity in them. And I tell myself that right now.
I love that. Yeah, I feel the same exact way. Where can people find you?
They can find me anywhere, mostly Instagram. I think it's Landry M7. And then I do have a podcast that, like you were saying, you go back to the first ones of your posts and you're like, oh, that was so bad. That's where I'm at right now. So feel free to join me in the first few. I think I've done 6.
Nice.
So very, very new, very up and coming. But it's been fun. It's kind of just been a passion project for me of just like, I have these conversations with you all the time and have conversations with friends. And I'm like, how can I like share that to people? Because sometimes it's interesting and to certain people. And so, yeah, so the Landline podcast is up and coming. And typically I do Monday releases. So Instagram, social media. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being on today.
Thanks, Becca. It was so fun just catching up with you. And I think we agree on a lot of things too. So that makes it even more fun where I can just say whatever I want to say. I know that you're like, yes, that makes sense.
For sure. I'm always a hype man.
Yeah, I love it. I need that sometimes. I need it.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Becca Babbles podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, the best thing that you can do is leave a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any other listening platform of your choosing. If you want to learn more about me, you can do that by following me on Instagram at Becca and Wellness, or by checking out my blog, freebies, offers, and newsletter on my website at beccaandwellness.com. If you want to share the love of the podcast, you can do that by taking a screenshot and sharing it on social media and tagging me and the podcast at Becca and Wellness and using the hashtag Becca Babbles Podcast. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I can't wait to babble with you next time.